This is our limited series, Ask an RD inside the Dr. Shannon Show, where we ask registered dietitians some of your most pressing nutritional questions. I'm Dr. Shannon. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's Ask an RD. Today, I have Allie Chilcote with me. She is a functional medicine registered dietitian. We just recorded another episode about bloating, so y'all will have to go back and listen to that one. She is the owner of Restored by Allie, and she addresses digestive symptoms, hormonal imbalances, skin issues, fatigue, thyroid imbalances by taking a root cause approach. And today we are talking about blood sugar. And this is a topic that I sometimes talk about in relation to exercise, and it's getting a lot of attention online. So I want to hear from you about really how it affects us, what we can do about it, why we should care. So tell us, what is blood sugar? Let's start from the very beginning. What is blood sugar and why should we care about it?
Yeah, so blood sugar is the glucose in our bloodstream that is from consuming carbohydrate. So when you consume carbohydrates, that breaks down into sugar, then that's going to cause a rise in your blood sugar. And then we have a hormone called insulin that's going to basically unlock the cells to absorb it, and then you can use it for energy. So it's very, very important. It impacts so many functions in the body: mood, energy, hormonal symptoms, etc. So it's a super, super important thing to keep balanced and keep in regulation and to prevent things down the road from happening like type 2 diabetes.
I love how you said balance, because I think that this is something that's misunderstood. It's not that we don't want blood sugar to rise at all. It's just that we want it to be in balance. So can you talk about what that balance means or looks like?
Yeah. So basically, I like to think about it as rolling hills. So you don't want like mountains with peaks and valleys. You want your blood sugar to stay at a rolling hill. So it's going to rise. And I think social media can put this out of perspective. So you want to see it go up and down. It's not bad to have a rise or a spike in blood sugar because it's going to go up. You just ate a carbohydrate and then it's going to come back down. But how rapidly that happens, which we can alter with the way we eat, does impact that. And then the fact that it can come back down rather quickly and you don't develop insulin resistance.
Okay. So if we have poor blood sugar regulation, how does that affect us both in the short term and the long term?
Yeah, so short term, you're going to feel the effects pretty rapidly. So when we have imbalanced blood sugar, you can have irritability, fatigue, mood swings, brain fog. It can even cause digestive discomfort. And then long term, it's going to cause things like hormonal imbalances, sleep disruptions, type 2 diabetes, and more chronic conditions down the road.
What are some symptoms that would indicate that we have poor blood sugar regulation?
Yeah, so that's really going to, like on a day-to-day basis, you're going to have swings throughout the day or like extremely low dips. So a lot of times with clients, I'll see an afternoon slump. So that's often due to skipping breakfast, just having caffeine. So then you're already setting yourself up for this blood sugar roller coaster. And then in the afternoon, you'll hit that major dip. So fatigue, brain fog, mood swings are going to be the big ones there that someone does start to see. It can be shakiness, not having a great workout, all of those types of things are going to be indicators of poor blood sugar balance.
What about weight gain? Because I think that's what a lot of people are like interested in. Does blood sugar affect weight gain? I know it can affect cravings.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so it definitely can affect cravings, and then it can cause weight gain because it's going to impact your signaling hormones, so ghrelin and leptin. And so when your blood sugar is in balance, and this is often due to disrupted sleep, it's going to increase your ghrelin, and then that's going to increase your hunger. And so that's one way that we can see that. And the other thing is insulin resistance that can cause weight gain. So whenever you're resistant to your insulin continues to secrete because your cells are becoming resistant to it, that can also lead to weight gain and then increased storage into your cells and into your fat cells.
So it's not necessarily the blood sugar itself that's causing the weight gain. It's that it's changing your behavior, affecting your behavior, causing you to overeat, or explain that.
It's more affecting hormones long term. So it's directly correlated, but also indirectly correlated. So it's kind of more of like a long term, big picture type of thing. It's not like, oh, your blood sugar was dysregulated today, you're going to gain weight tomorrow type of a thing. It's going to really be this long progression before things really start to develop and then can cause the weight gain or weight loss resistance.
Okay. So what are the ways to improve blood sugar? You just mentioned sleep. And we can talk about, I actually want to put a pin in that and talk more deeply about sleep here in a moment. But what are ways you can do to improve your blood sugar balance?
Yeah. So a lot of it's going to come down to, again, all these little micro habits that are very, very important. So one of the most crucial things is going to be a balanced breakfast. So this is setting you up for success. Breakfast is so, so important. So really within an hour of waking and then having adequate protein there, that's going to really allow for those rolling hills and prevent those dips and spikes. So for someone that's fasting and just having coffee, waking up and having coffee without anything with it, then they are going to see that spike in cortisol, and then that's going to be followed by a drop in blood sugar. And so then that kind of leads you to those spikes and valleys. So breakfast, so important, would be the first one that I do really encourage someone to follow. Spacing your meals out and spacing them out adequately. So in the last episode, we talked about 3 to 4 hours for digestion. The same thing kind of goes for blood sugar, because we want to stay stable. We don't want to get too low, because then you'll feel the effects from that when you fast for too long. And then that's going to increase cortisol, and then you're going to have to tap into stored forms, which then is putting your body through this whole array of stress. So we really just want to try to balance them out. And then keeping all of your meals balanced. So really trying to not have a carbohydrate naked. So pairing it with a protein, fat, and fiber is very, very important. At least all 3 with all of your meals, and then 2 of the 3 snacks is really recommended. And that can help to provide that cushion. So kind of going back to how fast your blood sugar is going to rise, that will depend on how you're consuming the carbohydrates. So when you pair it with a protein and a fat, it's going to be a much slower rise and a more stable rise, and keep things more consistent throughout the day. Movement after meals is a big one. So that's going to help your body to use the glucose more effectively. So going for a gentle walk is very, very helpful. Strength training in the long run, because that's going to improve muscle mass and glycogen stores, which is where your glucose can go and get stored. So that's going to improve that whole signaling system. So those are kind of the big ones that someone can focus on every single day to keep blood sugar more balanced and regulated.
2 follow-up questions. If someone like me struggles to eat, I struggle to eat first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I do have coffee, and then I'll eat breakfast later. Is there something we can put in our coffee to help buffer that? Or is it one of those things just get over it and eat something?
Yeah. So, you could put a little bit of collagen in there. So that's going to give you a really easy source. And that's often something that I really encourage clients to do, because you're not adding anything, and you can just still drink your coffee. But having a small snack is typically what I recommend. And it kind of depends on the context of when you're working out. So if you're just having coffee and then going to work out, you're probably going to have a much better workout if you have coffee with a little snack and then go to do your workout. Yeah. So trying to just have a snack and then have your full breakfast 2 hours later. But that little morning snack can be super helpful.
When it comes to a pre-workout snack, is it a carb and a protein? I know you said no naked carbs. So does that apply before a workout as well?
So in the context of that, a carbohydrate would be fine, because you're immediately going to work out. But I always try and follow that rule and encourage that. So typically, my favorite snack in the morning is a waffle from Trader Joe's with collagen and my coffee. And then I go to do my workout. And it's my little treat. And I drink that while and eat that while I'm doing my quiet time. And it's just part of my morning routine. But a lot of people like to do energy balls, piece of fruit. So with fruit, you're going to get carb and fiber. So that's going to be better for your blood sugar than just a carbohydrate alone.
Okay. And the collagen in your coffee provides a little protein. So you're getting the protein and then the waffle, the carb.
Yep, exactly.
What about the order in which you eat your macros?
Yeah.
Eating fiber first or fat first before, and then eating carbs last.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
So I think it's going to depend on the individual. And then stress also really impacts your blood sugar too. So if you're eating in this chronic state of stress, if you do the protein first and then your carbs, is that going to make a huge difference? Because the stress is also going to cause a response in your blood sugar. But yes, theoretically, and there's a lot of research on this and a lot of conflicting research on this, but the order in which you eat, because it's going to provide that buffer. So it's going to provide that cushion versus the first thing you're consuming to be the carbohydrate. It's going to allow that rapid rise. So yeah, protein first and vegetable or non-starchy vegetable can be super helpful to have first, and then followed by carbs.
Because I think about it, I'm like, I think that's so interesting, because I eat, I'll take a bite of my protein or what, because I'll think about this sometimes. I'll take a bite of my protein and my vegetable and try to eat or finish that first, and then leave the carbs for last. And the carbs are my favorite part anyway, so it sort of feels like the best part. I'm saving the best for last. But then I'm like, but I'm eating this minutes after. So does it really even make that big of a difference? To have those couple minutes maybe of buffer before I eat the carb?
Yeah, it definitely does make a difference. And even like at a restaurant, when like they bring the bread basket, like waiting till you have your salad can definitely help with that. But it does provide a little bit of the buffer. And going back to our other conversation on the last episode with having adequate meal hygiene. So really chewing your food and spacing your meals out will lead to less of a blood sugar rise or a more slow blood sugar rise than rapidly eating.
Yes.
But it does provide a tiny bit of a buffer, and that's what the research is kind of conflicting. Is it significant enough? But it's like, again, all of these little bitty habits, if it can make a difference, why would you not take a couple of bites of your protein first and then save the best part for last?
Totally. Love it. Sleep. How does sleep and circadian rhythms affect blood sugar?
Yeah, so really good question. And it's a really interesting relationship because it kind of creates this bidirectional relationship. So blood sugar is going to impact sleep. Sleep is going to impact blood sugar. So blood sugar is really going to impact sleep because when your blood sugar is imbalanced throughout the day, it's going to create a disbalance or an imbalance with cortisol. And so with that imbalance in cortisol, it's going to, again, create those mountains and valleys. And then that's going to probably, if you're dipping in the afternoon, you're going to dip in the middle of the night. So that dip is going to create a spike in cortisol to release more glucose from stored forms, and that's what's going to wake you up. Additionally, when you have disrupted sleep, that impacts your signaling hormones. So insulin, ghrelin, leptin. So a disrupted night's sleep will significantly impact that. So if you think about like a night where maybe you went out, had some alcohol, or you just didn't sleep well, you're often hungrier the next day because there's that automatic increase in ghrelin and then that decreased efficiency of insulin. So it's going to lead to more dysregulated blood sugar. So this is something we see a lot with the clients in our practice, that just disrupted sleep is causing all of their blood sugar problems because they're eating the balanced diet, all of those things, but their sleep and their circadian rhythm is off, and then that's causing all of the issues following.
So then it seems like such a downward spiral. Mm-hmm. So then what do you address first? Do you address the sleep hygiene first and then look at the food, or what are tips that you have for that?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for sleep is circadian rhythm. So aligning our 24-hour clock, our bodies are designed to follow that. So if you can see sunrise, if you can get out and see the sunshine during the day, minimizing blue light exposure before bed, all of that's going to set you up for success. But it's really challenging when you're facing both of these, of which do I address first, but it's starting with the foundational habits, of course, balancing your blood sugar throughout the day, but the circadian rhythm's really going to align everything, really help to balance cortisol, and then allow you to stay asleep all night.
Yeah. What about taking sleep supplements like melatonin and things like that? What are your thoughts there?
So typically we don't recommend melatonin just because the more external source you give your body, the less your body is going to produce. So the whole point of aligning circadian rhythm is going to allow for that natural increase and decrease in melatonin and cortisol, and they're opposite. So in the morning your cortisol rises, but that's going to set your melatonin at night up for success to increase. So that's why the morning sunlight is so important. Mm-hmm. People often just think about blue light before bed, but really your morning routine is going to impact that as well. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very important. So we kind of address it from more of a lifestyle lens. We do have some like calming supplements that we like to use with clients that don't have melatonin, just to allow your body to secrete its own melatonin.
Mm-hmm. I find that if I take melatonin, I like crash, but then I wake up in the middle of the night.
Right.
So I'm like, this really isn't working.
Yeah, and it's kind of a Band-Aid. So you're taking the melatonin. Well, let's figure out how we can get your own melatonin to secrete. And so that's kind of the way we address it, again, with just looking at the root cause of everything.
Well, does your body secrete less melatonin if it's getting it, supplementary?
Over time, so it'll rely on that external source, and so it'll stop secreting as much.
Okay, so it seems like that could mess up your circadian rhythm.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I'm sure there's lots of people that are like, oh my gosh, I take melatonin every single night. Yeah. So then if someone's going to wean off melatonin, do they just stop cold turkey and then struggle with falling asleep, or?
It depends on the dose. And so this is something that we really we work with a lot of clients because so many women struggle with disrupted sleep and just have fallen into the trap of take the sleep supplement, or even stronger like NyQuil, ZQuil, all of those things, and to rely on that for sleep. But I found when you really take a step back, focus on all of the foundation, so spacing the meals, blood sugar, stress management's another big one. So again, really addressing the root of what's going on, and then really aligning your circadian rhythm. It's really this easy transition. So they can wean down depending on the dose, but once you try and or really work on the other habits, it will make a huge impact on your sleep.
Yeah. Have you studied at all exercise timing and circadian rhythms?
So, and there's conflicting research on that too. And it's been a little bit since I've dug into that because your strength, and I think you've talked about this before on a podcast, is actually best in the afternoon. So there's that research, but it really depends on what works for you. There is something to be said about exercising right before bed, it's going to increase cortisol, it's going to increase your nervous system response and all of that. So it can make it more difficult to wind down.
I always just tell people, like, get it in when you can. Like, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
If it's, like, revving you up right before bed, obviously let's try to get it in some other time. But if you're taking an Evlo class, I find that you're usually not super revved up afterwards. If you're doing, like, a HIIT class or something right before bed, I think that might be ill-advised.
Exactly.
Maybe take that earlier in the day if you can.
But yeah, from a habit standpoint, I think whatever works for you is best as long as it's not impacting other processes in the body.
Yep. I always tell people, just don't overthink it. Just be consistent if you can.
That's the most important thing.
Yep. Anything else that we missed that's interesting about this topic?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think on the sleep.
Blood sugar in general. Yeah. Anything that you like really find is an unlock for your patients?
Not that comes to mind. I mean, it's really, again, the boring, the unsexy stuff that makes the biggest difference. And it's just really trying to stay consistent with all of those little habits to form this profound impact on your health overall.
I thought about a quick question before I leave you.
Yeah.
Fiber seems to be getting so much attention right now. How does fiber affect blood sugar?
Yeah, so fiber is non-digestible, so it doesn't actually impact blood sugar. So it would be one of those things that is going to provide that buffer because you actually can't break it down. So fiber is great because it's feeding the gut microbes. So it's helping to allow your bacteria to thrive. It's giving fuel for that. So it's actually providing a blood sugar buffer. So when we look at carbohydrates, looking at those higher fiber carbohydrates, so like sweet potatoes, quinoa, beans, legumes, lentils, all of those carbohydrates that are going to be your complex carbs because they have fiber and carbohydrates in it will lead to less of a blood sugar rise.
That's why there's less of a blood sugar rise. Okay. I never really understood that correlation or knew that correlation.
Yeah,
super
so
interesting.
Super beneficial. The other thing, which I always think is cool and talk about with clients, is resistant starches. So resistant starches are resistant to digestion. So kind of that same philosophy. It feeds the good gut bacteria, but you can't actually break it down. Cooked in cooled rice, cooked in cooled potatoes. And so you can reheat them. So essentially when you meal prep, like your rice or your potatoes, and then you reheat it the next day for lunch. Once it cools all the way down, it forms that resistant starch. It's resistant to digestion, so it's going to have less of an impact on your blood sugar than just a cooked and then consumed potato.
What? So you're saying cook the potato or the rice the night before, and then reheat it when you want to eat it again. Really?
So someone that's really struggling with insulin resistance, that's like the easiest little tweak that they can make. So you're not even changing what you're consuming, you're just changing the preparation for how you consume it.
I am shook. I never knew that.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Super fascinating. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know the listeners are going to love this. They need to go follow you. So shout out your Instagram, your website, and how we can work with you.
Yeah, it's Restored by Allie, and then my website is restoredbyallie.com. And then there's an application and more information on my website for how we work with clients. But it's typically a 4-month package that we do to really dig deep and get to the root cause of all of your symptoms.
And you were saying, just in case someone didn't listen to the last episode, you do these 3 tests.
Yeah.
And tell us about those again.
Yeah. So we run comprehensive panels to really look at the body as a whole. And this is something that we find that's missing with some other functional medicine providers is they just listen to symptoms and then give X, Y, or Z protocol. Well, we really want to look at everything. And then the various systems are going to impact other systems because they're all very connected. So we'll do a full blood panel. So that's going to look at a full blood sugar panel, which is really cool. So often at your annual, you'll just get a glucose. So we run glucose, insulin, and A1C to really look at the full picture for what's going on blood sugar wise. Look at your iron panel, other metabolic markers that really give insight into overall health. The GI map, so comprehensive analysis of your stool. So that's looking at everything from a gut health perspective. And then the HTMA, and that's the hair tissue mineral analysis that looks inside your cells at what's going on from a cellular standpoint. So giving insight into digestion, thyroid. There's a blood sugar marker in there, so we can really look at how minerals impact blood sugar and just overall health. And then it's looking at everything from a different angle. So it's a really, really cool test that we love to run with all of our clients.
So cool. I bet you often change your recommend, if you listen to just their symptoms And then maybe you form like a hypothesis. Do you often change that hypothesis based on someone's tests? Like, is it often like, oh, whoa, that's actually not what I would recommend for them based on their like objective tests?
Yeah. It's always so interesting. So I'll write my initial assessment after our evaluation of like what I kind of think is going on, and then we'll get the testing. Oftentimes it's pretty spot on, but sometimes I'm like, whoa, like I did not catch that from our eval, and like it's nothing that was uncovered from the eval, and it took the testing to really see what was going on. Yeah. But a lot of symptoms align with what's going on. So it's really cool to look at my eval, and then once we have the lab work, to build together this picture. And it's so cool to see the first test, the second test, and the third test, because we go over them separately of like, oh, well, this impacted that, and watching the light bulb come on the clients of like, well, wow, that is so crazy that we saw that in my blood work, and now we're going over my HGMA or my GI map, and they're very related.
Yeah. And after these 4 months, do you see pretty marked changes in their symptoms?
Yeah, typically so.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, everyone needs to go follow her and work with her if you feel like you need it. Highly recommend, if you are questioning it, go work with Allie. She's amazing. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here, Allie.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It was so fun. We will see you all next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.